Hi, I'm Roger Aguinaldo, and welcome to the M&A Advisor podcast. Since 1998, the M&A Advisor has been the definitive source dedicated to recognizing achievement, delivering unrivaled thought leadership, and connecting the world's mergers and acquisitions elite. We help you sharpen your edge and accelerate your success in deal making. Whether you're an ambitious new player or a market veteran, this podcast provides masterclass strategies, unvarnished stories, and vital lessons from the industry's influential figures. Before we launch into this episode, be sure to follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and subscribe to our essential M&A Alerts email newsletter. Find all the links below. Your engagement fuels the deal-making community. Now let's get into the transaction.
So good morning, everybody. Thanks to the M&A Advisor for having us up here to speak. This is a great honor, and both David and I have been involved in the M&A Advisor for many years. We've been on some panels before in the past, so it's a real treat to get to ask him some questions. And the topic for today, I don't know what the official topic is up here, but we're going to be talking about the importance of relationship building, mentorship, apprenticeship in the M&A world. And the theme is sort of old school, new school. So, maybe we'll start with old school, from the beginning. And rather than me go on for hours about David, about, all of his accomplishments that I think are important, maybe I'll turn it over to you, David, for a moment to just talk a little bit about, who you are, what you do currently, and then we'll take a step back to see where it all started.
Sure. Roger and everyone, thanks for having us. This is always great. It's always great to exchange ideas. For those of you who I don't know, and it's tough to see out into the audience, I'm David Deutsch. I founded a firm called David Deutsch & Company 33 years ago. As I tell people kiddingly, I formed the firm 140 assignments ago. But I began on Wall Street in 1981, so 40 odd years ago. All these numbers are daunting to me too. I just can't believe that time has passed. Began my own Wall Street career originally in sales and trading at what was then Lehman Brothers Kuhn Loeb, which was then one of the several 4, 5, 6 then illustrious Wall Street partnerships. Of course, Wall Street's changed a lot. And by the way, quickly went from hey Steve, so went from thank you. That very much appreciated. Perfect, just what I need. Hang on one sec. So went from, for those of you tracking careers, went from institutional sales and trading, then to business school. I remember actually this gal, whose name I still remember, Elizabeth Katsavelos, who interviewed me at Columbia Business School, who said, you're coming from the job that our students want to get right now. That was an era of the great rise of capital markets and institutional sales and trading, and I was going the other way. I was going from being a bond trader to I wanted to learn where the bond came from. I wanted to do corporate finance. Went to Columbia Business School. During and after worked at by the way, I'll name a series of firms. One of the many things to kid around about is no firm where I've ever worked exists anymore, except my firm. So it's interesting that my firm somehow has outlived these grand old firms. But began at Lehman, then during and after business school went to Drexel Burnham, and then Bear Stearns, and rose through the ranks in corporate finance and M&A at those firms. 1993, put the knife between my teeth. And by the way, when a little bit of a disjointedness in capital markets, when the buyout business and the M&A business, as we then knew it, that was in very much of a heyday in the 80s, when that effectively collapsed in 1989, and not so much, by the way, after the crash of 87 as what was then known as the mini crash of 89, which was kind of a debt markets crash more than an equity crash. I went and for a few years went to a firm called Congress Financial, which is now part of Wells Fargo. So went from Wall Street to that to forming my firm in 1993. Look, let me stop there, but we can get into a lot of things that coming in on the train this morning, I jotted down a few things, more than a few things that I think have changed on the street since then.
And going back in time a little bit, when you started out, can you talk a little bit about your experiences? I mean, we've talked about this before, you came up with some of the greats in the industry. Can you talk a little bit about, early on in your career, who sort of influenced it, who helped you along the way, what sorts of opportunities did you get access to because of your own skills in building relationships and sort of working a room and getting yourself to the places you wanted to be to do what you wanted to do?
Well, look, I mean, there are people that I've met along the way, and by the way, many mentors of mine, most of whom, those that are still alive, frankly, I've remained in touch with. And I know that there are a lot of young faces in the room. I'd really encourage you to do that, to identify not just one but several mentors, and really do right by them, keep in touch with them, circle back to them. But look, I mean, so many of the people that I grew up with, all the original great Kiss and Tell Wall Street books were about them. So Greed and Glory on Wall Street was the story of then Lehman Brothers and the Pete Peterson versus Lou Glucksman fight. Well, I sat in a desk right in front of Lou Glucksman, and I mean that was the life that I lived. Or the, Connie Brooks book about Drexel Burnham. I mean, I lived that era and all the people in that book. I mean, all of there's a lot of great Wall Street history, but I'm forgetting the question. But basically, learned a lot from a ton of people. By the way, back to Drexel, I still remain very close to Mike Milken. So I was with Mike Milken when he received the Ellis Island Medal of Honor, and he was inducted into the Fixed Income Hall of Fame. These were both in the last couple of years, and this is 35 years later.
When you're dealing with young people in your own firm, or you're at events like this, and you're out networking during the events, what sorts of advice do you give based on your experiences as far as, you forged all these relationships for yourself? And again, it's a very interesting time where we've got access to all sorts of technology, and, if there's somebody you want to reach out to, you can get their email very quickly, you can find out. What advice do you have for sort of some of the young people in the room as far as taking the chance to reach out and sort of, sometimes you've got the mentors that are around you and around the water cooler in your office, but there's a real ability to sort of reach out and meet the people that you want to meet. How would you, if you're talking to young people in your own firm or at an event like this, what would your advice be?
So this reminds me of, as I grew up through the ranks, as my friends all we all hit the point where we were becoming managing directors and partners of various places. And my friends at law firms in particular would say to us banker types, they'd say, now it's their job to bring in business at a law firm. Us bankers somehow know how to do that. How do you do that? And I used to kid around with them that, look, begin 10 years ago, keeping in touch with everyone who you've ever worked with. So it's not the sort of, I think, today's overt, let me network with you, as much as it is growing up with people, doing right by them, seeing them again on a transaction years later, literally growing up with people. I mean, this is a crazy statistic, but my own, so I don't know how many of you remember what was actually called a Rolodex. So in the days before CRM, before Salesforce, before Maximize, and all these things that we use now, there were literally these, this thing called a Rolodex that sat on your desk. I don't know, 20 years ago, I had 2 gigantic Rolodexes, and today there's something like 30,000 names in our firm's CRM that we have some relationship with. That's not a telephone book. That's just a collection of people over the years.
So when you stepped out on your own, I mean, that's a very big step to launch your own firm, especially in New York, in the business that we're in. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what that leap of faith was like, and how the people around you in that Rolodex were able to help you get to where you are now.
Look, it is a leap of faith, but it depends who you are. I mean, being entrepreneurialism, forming your own firm, that sort of thing is not for everyone. There are a lot of people, I think, who would rather be at a large firm, rise through the ranks, become a subject matter expert, make money that way. That's a perfectly fine way of doing things. I've always been entrepreneurial, and I also came to and by the way, even within large firms, and frankly, it got me a little bit in trouble when I was at Bear Stearns as a VP. And I sort of remember, it was, one MD used to always say, "Where's David?" And the thing was, I was out sort of with my own clients, kind of spreading my wings, becoming a sort of an MD type, not just a VP type. But that's a new business instinct. Look, one of the conclusions that I came to was, as an MD type, I'll be judged on the basis of the business that I do anyway. So I either have an ability to bring that business in and be a great banker, be a great advisor to clients independently or not. And if I do, I'll bet on myself. And by the way, the economics are clearly different. So we can get into that. What does it mean to bring in $1 million or $5 million or $10 million of revenue at a large firm? And ultimately, what's the payout, if you will, to the MD versus the way those economics work at a smaller firm? It's a different proposition.
Well, and with that said, as you're sort of working with young people, I have young people in my practice who are very anxious to sort of get to the next level, Maybe you can talk a little bit about that as far as what's important, moving fast and achieving some goal versus going through, trusting the process. And, our business is it's really an apprenticeship business. It's not unlike a shoe cobbler or something like that. You learn as you go.
I say that all the time.
Maybe talk a little bit about how that's impacted you.
Look, there are different skills that are important at different levels, obviously. And by the way, I mentioned a moment ago being an entrepreneur. I kind of hate it when juniors come up to me and say, well, I want to be a banker because I've always been an entrepreneur, or because I want to be an entrepreneur. And my first response is, you've got to understand that at the analyst level and the associate level, that's actually not at all about entrepreneurship. That's about digging ditches, hammering on the railroad, getting things done, being reliable. I mean, and that's, by the way, the three things that I tell juniors that I want to be, they want me to say about them, they're really smart, they get shit done, and they're a pleasure to work with. That's what, and that's what's required of them, certainly at a junior level. And then at a mid-rank level, it's much more important to have and to develop managerial skills, project management skills. And at an MD level, very different set of skills. That's much more overarching advice, overarching relationship management.
Tell me a little bit about, in your current firm as younger folks come on board, do you have a formal process of teaming them up with mentors? Is it sort of a natural, free-flowing thing? How does it work in your own practice?
So we're at a crazy, quirky firm. So I say this to people, and at first blush, they don't understand it. I've somehow managed to become, through COVID and through the way we all work remotely, the single employee of an organization of 61. Now, what does that mean, and where are those people? What it means is that we no longer go to a central office, and haven't, by the way, for many years. So we were really crazy early mobile. Everyone had to be mobile in the spring of 2020 when you're sitting at Morgan Stanley as a banker and the head of banking sends around a memo that says no one can come to the office for the next year. We began that in 2010, so 10 years prior. So when you go back to what do I tell people in juniors and how do they manage and mentor and so on, I'm at the hub of the firm. By the way, we're not doing a million things. We've done 140 things over 30 years. So we're doing essentially 5 things a year, which can be managed by the head of the firm. Now, what are all those bodies doing? Well, they happen to be, among other things, subject matter experts relating to our board advisor activity. There's another activity of ours called our President's Council, which is a merchant banking activity. 25 CEOs that began with people whose companies we had sold that invest with us. We have another activity, by the way, called Camp David, which is outside of the day-to-day business. But so in terms of mentorship, and I'm going off track a little bit, it's a rolling admissions process. We've had, by the way, I think at last count, 68 interns. The sort of rolling admissions notion is they're constantly applying, and happily from the very best schools in the country, and happily our interns have graduated, if you will, to every top firm on the street. So there's just a steady stream of them. When I see kids that I like, I invite them to interview. There are a few hoops. I won't tell you the secrets of what we look for, because there are some things that we ding. I'm happy to tell you, actually, some things that where people can foul out. But if they don't foul out, they get advanced in the process, and then they're really mentored by me.
Maybe a little bit more on the things you look for. I think everybody would love to know.
So let me begin with not fouling out. What in the world might that mean? And this is shockingly simple. But here we are. Of course, everyone here is dressed in a jacket and sometimes tie. It astounds me how when a student comes, look, people can foul out in a million ways. Number one, it's the way they fill out our application. We have a fairly extensive application, including some trick questions, by the way. So one of those questions is, who's buried in Grant's tomb? If somebody says, I don't know, Grant, that's a foul out, because evident in that is no curiosity, no research, no nothing. By the way, the answer happens to be Ulysses S. Grant, the 18th president of the United States, along with Julia Dent Grant, his wife. People think they're dog, and in fact, no one is buried. They're all entombed above ground. That's the 100-point answer. But so there are gradations of answers to things. Are people articulate? Do people get to the point? If people give long-winded answers, that's a foul out. If people show up at an interview forget a T-shirt, which unbelievably some students do, they say, well, I was running between class, and that's why I'm here, huff puff on the interview in a T-shirt. And I'll tell them, you just lost. I hate to say it, but would you walk into my office that way for an interview? So they've got to be put together on time. By the way, early's on time is late. I'll check the Zoom. If they're not there basically a minute before, it's a foul out. So it's all the, so then once you don't foul out, then, and I hope you don't, then what do you need to do? And what you need to do is demonstrate a lot more than you're just bright, a lot more than you just know finance. You've got to have some, but there's a great Yiddish word called sechel, that you have some sort of, native intelligence, cleverness. It's different than book smarts. So can people put the pieces together? Are they articulate? By the way, so I'm going on and on, but my favorite first interview question is, tell me the story of your life using as many facts and figures as possible in the next 2 minutes. That's it. I'm silent. And then I want to see if they do that. If they give the answer without facts and figures, they fouled out. If they go on and on beyond 2 minutes, they've fouled out. So they have, by the way, back to, interesting lessons, and this one isn't mine. It comes from Bill Bain, who famously founded Bain, the consulting firm. He said juniors have exactly 3 jobs. And by the way, these are the things that we're looking for in a junior. They number one, have to listen. They, number one, have to do exactly what's been asked of them and what they agreed to deliver. And then number 3, add value. So if they're doing all those 3 things, if their answers evidence the fact that they've listened, and they deliver on the question, and then, by the way, then there might be some additional cherry on top, that's a perfect response.
It's funny, when I was coming up, I was always told, you get rewarded for just getting stuff done, right? Like, no complaining, get as much done as you can. And I with my own people that work with me, if they can get it 60, 70, 80% of the way there and it saves me a lot of time, I'll invest the extra 20% to help them know better next time. But, getting stuff done is pretty important, and the right attitude to jump on it.
Oh yeah, look, in a binary world, done has an effective value of 10. A million things not yet done have an effective value of 0. Got to get, by the way, frankly, this was a lesson from sales and trading to me. That was one of the highest compliments you could pay to a trader, that so-and-so gets things done, gets trades done. You can think and theorize about value all day long, but if you're not effectively booking trades at profit, you haven't gotten anything done.
Well, we've got about 2.5 minutes left, and I would be remiss if I didn't give David the floor a little bit to talk about really an amazing relationship building exercise that he goes through every year that I've heard about and that we've talked about before, which is, he mentioned Camp David. He's not doing, sitting with Trump doing policy on what to do in the Middle East right now. He runs his own Camp David up in upstate New York. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that, because to me, that seems like the ultimate when somebody's gotten to a place in their career where they're killing it and they're really doing what they want to be doing every day, that then they can sort of roll out the red carpet to many, many people of different stripes to help build relationships and build an ecosystem of clients, friends, etc. Take it away, maybe. So,
look, thanks for mentioning it. It's something that I am particularly proud of. And by the way, I love being a banker. I love advising clients. I love the value of things. But at the end of the day, there's so many expressions that I use, one of which is, there's sort of the business of business and then the business of life. And I'm very into the business of life. If we're not having fun, if we're not happy while we're doing it, if we're not creating and maintaining great relationships, it really is all for naught. It's just an additional pile of money. So Camp David is this, it's something we've done. By the way, it began originally as, we just completed, by the way, this past August, whenever it was, 14th, 15th, 16th, or 15th, 16th, 17th, now I'm forgetting the dates. But we just finished the 25th Camp David. So years ago, when I had my then advisory board of my firm, I told that then group that I'm going to do this thing, that it's going to be a gathering and it'll be different. And their response was, what will it be? And I said, it's not quite defined yet. And they said, what will it generate? And I said, I'm not sure. And it was just one of these leaps of faith. What it is, by the way, it grew every single year to 250 people. We then said it's gotten too large. It's lost perhaps its intimacy. We now have a hard cap of 120 people, heads of all sorts of things. So many CEOs, former CEOs, including people whose companies we've sold, for example. Heads of philanthropies, heads of not-for-profits, government officials. Dave Walker, the longtime Comptroller General of the United States, the CEO of the U.S. budget, just gave a talk a couple of weeks ago. Allison Burroughs, who you may, so much of this stuff is in the news, but the whole Trump versus Harvard stuff, and as the current administration refers to sort of that damn judge, district court judge in Massachusetts who's making law, that's Allison Burroughs. She's an old friend of mine. I asked her if she'd give a quick talk at Camp David. So we have this whole business and broader get-together that begins with issues of corporate finance, M&A, company value, leadership, all of that, but then quickly devolves into issues of life, science, health, philanthropy, and phenomenal people. So happily, it's one of my favorite letters, actually, this must have been about 10 years ago. I got a letter from Phil Knight, who founded Nike. And I don't know Phil Knight, who founded Nike. And I don't happen to know him. And he wrote me this note, hey, a buddy of his went to Camp David, and this thing sounds great, and keep it up, go get him. It's become a kind of a famous thing.
I know all about it from on social media. I kept seeing posts about it all summer long. But it's an exciting thing to be in a place in your career where you can not only do your thing very successfully, but surround yourself with interesting people. And I find, I started a new firm about a year ago. All of my clients, my new clients at this new firm, I've known for at least 20 years. They're my friends.
Great.
And that's how it goes, right?
And look, it's all, there's truly, this sounds so schmaltzy and hokey, but there's truly nothing as good and wonderful and even valuable as relationships. So I say the same thing at Camp David, looking around the room. There's scarcely anyone in the room who I haven't known for at least 20 years.
That's great. Well, I think we're out of time. But David, any closing thoughts?
Well, I was only going to say any quick questions. I know that there are some juniors here, actually not so juniors, but look. And by the way, collect data points. I'm only one data point. I have only one view of the world, only one career trajectory. One of the things that I found that I don't know if you see movies and scenes in movies about and you know of sort of the elder and the wise man of the tribe. There is actually something to that, and I think the thing to that is that whoever the wise man is or wise woman, the correlation between that and age has to do with collection of data points. You've just seen a lot. So having seen hundreds of transactions, having had, having whatever the number is, tens of thousands of relationships, having 68 interns, having thousands of people who've come to Camp David over the years, just seen a lot. By the way, tons of conversations. Just do that, keep doing that, consume news as much as you can, get new ideas as much as you can. One of my favorite expressions, by the way, is if you want to get hit by something, play in traffic. Just play in a lot of traffic. You'll get hit by things, you'll learn from things, and you'll inevitably grow.
Great. Well, David, thanks a lot for this conversation. I'm sure it was helpful for everybody here. I always enjoy hearing you speak, so thanks again.
Thanks
to the M&A Advisor for having us both up here.
We hope today's episode delivered actionable intelligence. We want to hear from the field. Share your questions or insights, leave a message on your favorite platform, or email us at editor@maadvisor.com. To secure your steady feed of premium M&A content, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and subscribe to our M&A Alerts email newsletter. Find the links in the description below or visit us directly at our website at www.maadvisor.com. I'm Roger Aguinaldo, founder and CEO of the M&A Advisor. Thank you for being part of the M&A Advisor community. Until next time, stay decisive, stay connected, and happy dealing.